I think one of the big turning points in how people like saw things was really that Epstein stuff, and I think it was kind of around that same time that I started to notice Urine Ed's kind of work more because I don't know, it was just the kind of atmosphere set the tone. But in general, do you think that there's really a genuine in the works you guys been doing, a real genuine element of just real conspiracy, of
I
elites in
think so.
power?
Like the social relationships and structures that are, working to carry out these so-called conspiracies. They're not really conspiracies. It's just that it's a way of coordinating between all these, top businessmen, the Rockefellers and the Whitney family and stuff. That is causing them to come together. It's not like they have a bad idea
Mm-hmm.
in their minds. It's like, these guys aren't evil geniuses. They're not supervillains. It's not like James Bond where they have a self-consciously evil conception of like what they want to do, and they're sitting down in a room and they're saying like, we want to control everything and we're gonna like enslave humanity, blah blah blah. Is that they
Yeah.
actually think that they're acting in like a very good way, on behalf of the world, and that they're trying to like promote international trade, and they're trying to promote like monetary unions, and that their belief, and this comes from like World War I, right, is that their belief is that in the interwar years, and that at the end of World War I, you had the Paris peace conferences fail, and you had the League of Nations fail, and that the Great Depression happened. And then how did people respond to the Great Depression? All these different nations, they put tariffs into place, right? And those tariffs, that economic protectionism, it collapsed world trade. And so all of these national domestic businesses in all these different countries is that they couldn't export the goods that they made anymore. So they had to like lay all their workers off, and then that caused the Great Depression, and then that led to World War II, because the whole interwar economic order broke down. And so when you get into the post-war era of like then Bretton Woods and the United Nations and the World Bank, that is all targeted at basically preventing that from happening again, right? So in their minds, the people who are like these world federalists who are trying to, control everything and like manage the whole world, is that they're doing that in this, through these economic institutions, through this program of development, right? And they're going to make World Bank loans to third world undeveloped countries that are going to allow those countries to develop economically, and that wages are going to go up in those countries as a result, and that jobs are going to be created, and that those countries are going to become more politically stable, and that the education systems in those countries are going to improve, and that like they have this whole theory about how all these things are going to stack up on top of one another, and that the world market is going to be a vehicle of like world peace. And so in like the minds of like these different people like Nelson Rockefeller or whatever, is that they see themselves as pursuing this goal, and they see it as a good thing. And I think even if you talk to like a lot of normal people who that they would probably agree with a lot of aspects of this, like uncritically, is that they would say like, it's good for economic development to happen in third world nations, and even like a lot of the Democratic Party rhetoric and like NGOs and all this stuff is that's what it was all designed to do. So that's like in my mind what the conspiracy is, but it's not like a secret conspiracy. It's like very public, it's very open, and like this agenda is totally fully stated by the people who believe in it. So like, why is Hillary Clinton like? Is she like an evil schemer behind the the in some closed boardroom with her little people, and she's like scheming out how to gain control? It's like I don't really think so. I mean, I think that she's like personally just like a shitty person, but I think in her mind that like she believes that she's carrying forward international peace, and that this is what America is designed to do. In her mind, it's not like America. Uh, you know, uh, the point of America is to preserve this whole structure, right? And if you preserve that structure, that's good for America, because America, historically, like since the end of World War II, is on top of that structure and benefits the most from it, because it's
Hmm.
like the enforcer of that structure. So in her mind, like pursuing this agenda of like globalism and stuff, like as opposed to what people on the right think, they imagine her as like scheming, and she's like, I wanted to destroy America in exchange for this globalism. But
Yeah.
that's not how it is at all. Like she's pursuing globalism because that's like the policy that's best for the United States historically.
And it really makes sense that how things work is that you have a very vague floating good aim, and the pursuing apparent pursuing of which is what reveals all of the material and objective contradictions. But I think the conspiracists' very deep suspicion, and you can tell this in the diversity of conspiracy theories about it, is that things are at such a great scale that at some top level there has to be this kind of some type of self-aware kind of conscious articulation of what it all of a conception of like what it all is that goes deep at the level of like, you know, I don't know, Renaissance occultism or kind of some kind of mysticism. Like there's been this kind of preservation of this uh, occult change, which is responsible for the modern world as we know it. Like the reason why the world is the way it is. Well, this is not what I necessarily believe, but I think
No,
this
no,
is the
I know
yeah.
what you're saying. It's like everybody in the chat is just saying, like, I guess sarcastically, just trying to like get on what I just said. Like, organized crime think they're the good fellows, or I don't know if that's what they meant, but I mean, to respond to that, yes,
They do,
because
yeah.
that's how we have this false idea of unitary sovereignty, right? That there's like that all of America's like sovereignty is endowed in like Joe Biden or something. That's not true. Is that like
Yeah.
obviously sovereignty is shared between a lot of different parts of society and a lot of different agencies within the government, right? That's what people mean by like the quote unquote deep state. It's not people mystify all these things and they can't understand them. But in my mind, it's like it's much clearer than that. In that there is like a national security council that's what the National Security Council is that it's an attempt to fuse together the fragments of sovereignty held by the State Department and the intelligence community and like the Department of Defense and like the President's office, and each of those parts, they hold a part of our sovereignty. And so the National Security Council historically, that's exactly the purpose it served, is to like act as a way to bring those shards together. But even like with the mafia, I mean, absolutely, that's how the mafia like starts, is as basically providing a police function and a security function to like immigrant communities in the United States because they weren't being protected by police. And so that's why the mafia is like a shadow state in that sense. Or in Italy, it was just the actual state. I mean, it's not necessarily just like Scarface or whatever, going back to like the early 20th century. I mean, really, it's like this was the state of the immigrant communities that was like imposing justice and like maintaining order in like these marginal communities that weren't, that were ignored by the police and justice systems.
Do
So
you
yeah, they did see themselves as something good.